They told me I'd be a hero if I died for the cause. No one warned me what happens when you refuse to become a monster. My story isn't easy to hear, but it needs to be told. What you're about to read changed everything I thought I knew about God, about honor, and about what it truly means to be free. If my words stir something in your heart today, please stay with me until the end. Before we begin, I want to ask you something. Wherever you are in this world right now, would you leave a comment telling me your location? Whether you're in America, Europe, Asia, Africa, or anywhere else, let's connect as one family. We need each other's prayers now more than ever. Your comment could encourage someone else reading this who feels alone in their struggle. Now let me tell you my story. My name is Khalid, and I turned 29 years old 3 months ago in a place very different from where I was born. I came from Mosul, a city where the smell of gunpowder became as familiar as morning bread, where the sound of bullets was the lullaby that rocked us to sleep each night. I was only 7 when I first saw a man executed in the town square. My father held my shoulder firmly and told me this was justice, this was the way of righteousness. The man had questioned the teachings, had spoken words considered dangerous. They made us watch as a warning. I remember closing my eyes, but my father squeezed my shoulder harder and informed me that real men don't look away from truth. That image stayed with me for years, planted like a seed that would later grow into something dark. By the time I reached 14, I was already being groomed for service. They called it an honor, a divine calling. The recruiters came to our neighborhood looking for young men with fire in their eyes and anger in their hearts. I had both. My older brother had been killed in a drone strike 2 years earlier, and the rage inside me needed somewhere to go. They gave me that place. They gave me a purpose, or so I believed. Training was brutal. We woke before dawn, studied texts that emphasized sacrifice and martyrdom, learned to handle weapons with the same care others might give to musical instruments. They renamed me during this time. My birth name felt too soft, too connected to the child I used to be. They called me Saif, which means sword. I wore that name like armor. I was told I was being shaped into an instrument of divine will, a warrior for the ultimate cause. Every doubt I had was labeled as weakness, every question as betrayal. So I stopped doubting. I stopped questioning. I became exactly what they wanted me to become. For 8 years I lived that life. I followed orders without hesitation. I participated in things that I now struggle to speak about, things that wake me up at night covered in sweat and shame. I convinced myself it was all necessary, all part of a greater plan that I was too small to fully understand. Then I met Amira. She was a childhood friend, someone I'd known before the war consumed everything. Her family had stayed in Mosul despite the danger, running a small bakery that somehow survived when so many other businesses had crumbled. When I saw her again after all those years, something shifted inside me. She looked at me not as Saif the warrior, but as Khalid the boy she used to know. We married quietly, a simple ceremony with few witnesses. For the first time in years, I felt something other than anger. She had a gentleness that confused me, a quiet strength that didn't need weapons or threats. When she touched my face, I realized how long it had been since anyone had touched me with kindness rather than violence. Amira saw things differently than I did. She questioned things I had stopped questioning years ago. She would ask me why children had to suffer, why mercy was considered weakness, why love seemed absent from everything we claimed was holy. At first, her questions irritated me. They felt dangerous, like cracks forming in a dam that held back too much water. But slowly, very slowly, those cracks began to widen. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember the exact day because it was the day everything I believed shattered into pieces. Too small to ever put back together, I had been ordered to participate in an operation in a neighborhood suspected of harboring enemies. We went in with force as we always did, searching homes and interrogating families. There was a small house at the end of a narrow street. Inside, we found a young mother with 2 children, a girl about 9 and a boy maybe 6. She was terrified, begging us in broken sentences, trying to protect her children with her own body. My commander decided she was hiding something. He accused her of collaboration, of betrayal. She denied it desperately, her voice shaking, tears streaming down her face as her children clung to her. What happened next I cannot describe in full detail. But I can tell you this. They hurt her in ways no human being should ever be hurt. They did it in front of her children. They did it while claiming it was justified, necessary, righteous, and I stood there. I stood there and did nothing. The sound of those children screaming. The way that mother's voice broke into something that wasn't quite human anymore. That sound lives inside me now. It has made a home in my chest, and I don't think it will ever leave. When we left that house, I felt something die inside me. Not dramatically, not with thunder or lightning. Just a quiet death, like a candle being snuffed out in an empty room. That night, I couldn't go home right away. I sat in an abandoned building, staring at my hands, wondering whose hands they really were. These couldn't be my hands. The boy who used to feed stray cats, who used to help his mother carry water, who used to laugh at his sister's jokes, that boy wouldn't have hands like these. I went home finally, and Amira knew immediately that something had changed. She didn't ask what happened. She just held me while I sat in silence, unable to cry, unable to speak, unable to feel anything except a vast emptiness that seemed to stretch forever. Days passed. Then weeks. I went through the motions of my duties, but something inside me had broken beyond repair. I started noticing things I had trained myself not to see, the fear in people's eyes, the way children flinched at loud noises, the mothers who clutched their babies tighter when we passed, the old men who wouldn't make eye contact. We weren't heroes. We weren't righteous warriors. We were the monsters in the stories parents told their children. I began having dreams. Strange dreams that felt more real than waking life. In one dream, I was drowning in dark water, unable to breathe, unable to swim, sinking deeper and deeper. Just when I thought my lungs would burst, a hand reached down and pulled me up. The hand belonged to a man I didn't recognize, someone dressed in simple white clothes, with eyes that held more kindness than I'd ever seen. He didn't speak in the dream, but somehow I understood what he was telling me. He showed me that I wasn't beyond saving, that the darkness I carried wasn't permanent, that there was still hope even for someone like me. I woke up gasping, my heart pounding. Amira stirred beside me and asked if I was okay. I told her about the dream, and she looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then she revealed something that shocked me. She told me she'd been having similar dreams, dreams of the same man in white, dreams that left her feeling both terrified and strangely peaceful. We started searching in secret. In a place like Mosul, curiosity about certain topics could get you killed, so we were careful. We used hidden internet connections, encrypted messages, whispered conversations with people we barely trusted. We discovered that others had experienced these same dreams, these same visions. Former fighters, former extremists, people who had walked the same bloody path we had walked, and they all pointed to the same person. Jesus. The name itself felt dangerous. We'd been taught that following him was the ultimate betrayal, the worst kind of apostasy. But the more we learned, the more everything started making sense in a way it never had before. This was a God who didn't demand blood but gave his own, a God who called the broken and the guilty to come home, a God whose power was shown through sacrifice rather than violence. I remember the first time I prayed to him. It wasn't eloquent or formal. I just sat alone in that same abandoned building where I'd first felt everything crack apart, and I whispered into the darkness. I told him I didn't know if he was real, but if he was, I needed him desperately. I confessed everything, every violent act, every moment of cruelty, every time I'd chosen hatred over humanity, and then I felt it. Not a voice exactly, but a presence. The same presence from my dreams. It was like being wrapped in warmth after years of cold, like finally being able to breathe after nearly drowning. For the first time since I was a child, I cried. Really cried. Not silent tears, but deep, shaking sobs that came from a place I didn't know still existed inside me. Amira found faith around the same time. We both knew what this meant. We both understood the cost, but we also knew we couldn't go back to who we were. That version of ourselves had died, and something new was trying to be born. We made contact with a secret community of believers, people who met in hidden places, who risked everything to worship freely. They welcomed us with open arms, with joy that seemed impossible given the circumstances. They didn't ask about our past. They didn't demand we prove ourselves worthy. They just loved us. One evening, in a basement lit by a single bulb, we were baptized in a large plastic container filled with water. It wasn't a grand ceremony in a beautiful church. It was quiet, rushed, dangerous. But when I went on... They came for us early one morning. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the city was still mostly quiet. I heard the vehicles before I saw them, that particular engine sound that makes your blood run cold when you've lived in a war zone long enough. I had seconds to react. I grabbed Amira's hand and told her to run. We had prepared for this possibility, had an escape route planned through back alleys and hidden passages. We ran like our lives depended on it, because they did. We could hear shouting behind us, boots on pavement, orders being barked. My lungs burned. My legs ached. But we kept running. We made it to a safe house, a place run by people who helped believers escape. They hid us in a space beneath the floor, a crawl space barely big enough for 2 people. We stayed there for 3 days. 3 days in darkness, barely able to move, surviving on water and scraps of bread passed down through a crack in the floorboards. We could hear them searching, hear them questioning our neighbors, hear them making threats. On the 3rd night, they found us. I won't describe everything that happened next. Some things are too painful, too degrading, too evil to put into words that a young person should read. But I'll tell you this, they wanted to make an example of us. They wanted to show what happens to those who abandon the cause, who choose a different path, who dare to believe differently. They beat me until I couldn't stand. They broke bones methodically, scientifically, asking questions between each blow. They wanted names of others in our community, locations of meeting places, information that would lead them to more believers. I gave them nothing, not because I was brave, but because something stronger than fear was holding me up. What they did to Amira was worse. They made me watch, tied up and helpless, unable to protect the woman I loved more than my own life. They violated her in ways designed to break both her spirit and mine. They laughed while they did it, quoted scriptures to justify their actions, called it righteous punishment. I screamed until my voice gave out. I fought against my restraints until my wrists bled. I begged them to kill me instead, to take my life and spare hers. They ignored every plea. When they finally stopped, Amira lay on the ground, barely breathing. Her eyes were open but empty, staring at nothing. I called her name over and over, but she didn't respond. Something vital had been taken from her, something that couldn't be measured or replaced. They left us there like garbage, warning that they'd be back to finish what they started. As soon as their vehicles drove away, people from the safe house rushed in. They carried Amira carefully, treating her wounds, speaking softly to her, even though she showed no signs of hearing them. I couldn't walk, so they dragged me. Every movement was agony, but the physical pain was nothing compared to what I felt inside. I had failed her. I had brought her into this faith, this dangerous path, and now she was paying the price for my choices. We were taken to another location, this one run by a network that smuggled believers out of the region. A doctor came, an older man with gentle hands and sad eyes. He'd seen cases like ours before, too many of them. He worked on us for hours, setting bones, stitching wounds, giving us medicine for pain and infection. But some wounds don't heal with medicine. Amira didn't speak for 2 weeks. She would just lie there, staring at the ceiling, her hand occasionally reaching for mine. When she finally did speak, her voice was different, smaller, like it was coming from very far away. She told me she wasn't angry at me. She said she'd make the same choice again, even knowing what it would cost. That moment broke me in a different way than violence ever could. We stayed hidden for 6 more weeks while arrangements were made to get us out. During that time, I wrestled with God honestly for the first time. I told him I didn't understand why this happened. I asked him where he was when we needed him most. I demanded answers for why following him had cost us everything. I never got the answers I wanted. But I got something else. I got peace that shouldn't have been possible. I got strength that wasn't my own. I got hope in a situation that should have only bred despair. Eventually, we made it out. I can't share details of how or where we are now, for the safety of others still doing that dangerous work. But we made it to a place where we could worship freely, where Amira could get the care she needed, where we could begin the long process of healing. That was 4 years ago. Today, Amira still has nightmares. I do too. We're both in therapy, working through trauma that runs deeper than either of us can fully express. Some days are harder than others. Some days the memories are so vivid that the present barely feels real. But we're alive. We're free. We're loved by a God who never abandoned us, even in our darkest moments. I'm telling you this story not to make you feel sorry for us, but to show you what real faith sometimes costs. There are people all over the world right now facing persecution we can barely imagine. They're being imprisoned, tortured, killed, simply for believing in Jesus. Their stories don't make the news. Their names aren't remembered, but God knows every single one of them. If you're reading this as a follower of Jesus, I'm asking you to pray. Pray for believers in hostile regions. Pray for those who are suffering right now as I write these words. Pray that they'll have supernatural strength, that they'll be protected, that they'll know they're not forgotten. And if you're reading this and you don't yet know Jesus, if you're curious about this faith that people are willing to die for, I want to invite you to meet him. Not religion, not rules, not rituals, just him. The man in white who reaches into our darkness and pulls us into his light. You can talk to him right now, wherever you are. You can tell him you're sorry for the wrong you've done, that you want to know him, that you need him to change your life. You can ask him to come into your heart and make you new. It's that simple. He's waiting for you. My name is Khalid. I was a terrorist. Today, I'm a follower of Jesus. I lost almost everything to follow him, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat, because what I gained is worth more than anything this world could ever offer. This is my story. This is his love. This is why we believe. If this story touched your heart today, please don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button right now. It helps more people find this testimony and hear about God's transforming power. And please, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life might be changed by Khalid's story. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We share powerful testimonies like this one every week, stories of people who found Jesus in the most impossible circumstances. You don't want to miss what's coming next. And please take a moment to leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from, share your thoughts, or simply type Amen if this testimony encouraged you. When we engage together, YouTube shows this video to more people who desperately need to hear about Jesus. Your comment could be the reason someone else discovers this story.